David and Andrea Cross have been with us with Saugatuck Church for a few years. Lauri and Phil Callen have joined us and been with us for a few months. Okay? You heard from Alice already this morning and saw Abraham, and I am so pleased that they said yes to my request for them to come and share a little bit about what has brought them to our community of faith. Welcome, Lauri and Phil. Come on up.
Thank you, Allison. I'm Lauri Callen.
And I'm Phil Callen.
And we are two recent arrivals at your doorstep, to use the metaphor from earlier. And Allison asked us to talk a little bit about what brought us here, and I thought it would be helpful to start a little bit with our journey, or our recent journey, which is something else you talked about, that we're all on a journey and we're heading to who knows where, but we're heading there together. Phil and I met in New York City about 11 years ago, and we had two children, Alice and Abraham. We were living in Manhattan. Phil's a performer, I'm an educator, and we had a very vibrant life, very vibrant church life, very vibrant community. Our church was based right in the middle of the neighborhood. There was a beautiful cherry tree out on the corner, and it welcomed everybody in. And that was really our welcome mat to that church, was that cherry tree. And then COVID hit, and suddenly and very quickly, it didn't feel like the safest place for our family to be. And we took a risk and stayed at a friend's place in New Haven for a few weeks. Phil and I don't have any family in Connecticut. We didn't know anybody really in Connecticut. Despite both of us being born here, we were born here in Meriden and Simsbury, but then our families displaced us at a very young age. So we do have roots here. But interestingly, when we decided to leave New York, we came to Connecticut just because it was where our friends had left an open house and an open kitchen for us to kind of move in and seek refuge from COVID-19. And we were there for several weeks, which turned into several months, and we realized we couldn't go back to New York. So suddenly we found ourselves looking for a home to rent an hour away from the city, and we found ourselves in Norwalk. No family, no friends, not really a community. Phil and I staring at each other, like, how did we end up in this place? And we were driving around, and there was a day that we were going up and down Westport Avenue. I think we were going to Trader Joe's. And I said, Phil, look at that Black Lives Matter sign on that church. And we stopped and we noted it. And at this time, churches weren't meeting, we weren't gathering in person. And that, I'll just say, it's been a complicated time to be a Christian. It's been a complicated time to be a Christian worshiping online and in isolation and away from your community. And that sign was like a welcome mat to us. And we noted it. We didn't act on it, but we just noted it. And then when we were touring schools for our son, Abraham, we happened across Saugatuck Nursery. And that was really our entrance to this church. And we walked through the halls, and we asked to see some of the spaces. And it just became clear to both of us that this was a place that invested in the space to create a warm and loving and beautiful space. And that just, the words of commitment and investment really stuck out with me when we were in this space. And so finally in January of this year, we decided to come in ourselves. And the welcome mat unfurled, the door swung open wide. We opened the door and were immediately greeted by Kim Matthias, who's not here because she's teaching our children. And we just couldn't believe this warm energy that served us. And then Carl was so excited to see two little children under the age of 5, and he raced up to our kids. And I'll tell you, we were just making friends in this community, and Carl was a superhero in our home. Carl was talked about almost every day. We walked in to pick up our kids, and Carl was on the floor playing trains with Abraham. Nobody was on the floor with our son playing with, we were far from our family and friends, and it was such a touching image. And Carl and Abraham really connected that day. So,
And in fact, every time we come into the church, Abraham grabs my arm and says, "Daddy, there's Carl."
So, yeah, it's, we've been to some other churches in the area, and I should have said that this church with the cherry blossom tree in Manhattan happened to be a UCC church. And when we learned that Saugatuck was a UCC church, it just was yet another connection. And one thing I wanted to say from that first invitation to take a spirit-filled breath and the first acknowledgement of the indigenous peoples who lived and labored here before and our ancestors who worked this land to be together, it has just felt like a very safe and wonderful place. And our real primary thought as parents, being in a place where our children can be in community with a Christian community with people of all ages, all types, is really important to us. And to see how many children are up here today was really quite special. One of the things that we also missed out on, I think, in the few years of COVID was just some spiritual family time together. And we really missed it. Church education was really important to me growing up and to Phil. And so when we were actually at another church in the area, we saw a presentation about Silver Lake Retreat Center. And Phil and I got really excited about maybe being able to go to Silver Lake and do the family camp. It was the one thing I wanted to do all summer was church family camp.
I had grown up in Michigan going to Lutheran church camp, and that was a church camp that no longer exists, but that was my upbringing, and it resonated so deeply with me.
And we saw the opportunity to go, and it was a little bit more than we could comfortably pay for on our own, and we thought about it, and we reached out to Reverend Allison. And this was only maybe 3 months after we'd started visiting, or 2 months even, and Reverend Natalie. And it was so wonderful that maybe it was from that discretionary fund that we heard Judy talk about last week, that they just gave us a little bit of money to help us go and give us 4 days to be with our kids in nature and spend time with other families and other Christian children and their parents in this wonderful and safe community. So I want to thank you for opening the door to us and for the commitments and the investments and the greetings, the laughs, but investing in the Christian education. I know Kitty was here and Kitty's gone, and to see how Michael and Kim have jumped up, and it just feels like we're just very happy to be here. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And the only other thing I'd add is in all this conversation today about the narrow door and the way we were welcomed is the way we see God's love for us. And so in supporting the church, we not only try to bring about the kingdom of God in here, but we open the door for the kingdom of God. That everybody who comes to this door is God's child, and hopefully we will be a part of the welcome you gave us to those people. And if they don't come to this door, we will go and find them. And help them. And that's why God talks about a narrow door, but as we say, God's arms are open wide for everyone. Whether they believe or they don't, we love them, and we love everyone. So thank you very much for opening your door to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.